Ever heard of poetry that feels more like a philosophical debate or a clever legal argument? Poetry that's packed with logic and wit. Well, welcome to the 17th century, the era of the metaphysical poets. This wasn't your typical hearts and flowers poetry. It was a revolution of the mind, a time when poets flexed their intellectual muscles and challenged readers to think deeply about life as biggest questions. So, what makes a poem metaphysical? The name itself was actually coined a bit later by critics, and it wasn't always a compliment. But today, we recognize it as a unique and powerful style. The core of it is a blend of passion and reason, emotion and intellect. These poets weren't afraid to get nerdy. They drew inspiration from all sorts of fields: science, law, theology, geography, you name it. They believed that to truly understand something, whether it's love or God, you had to examine it from every possible angle. The signature move of a metaphysical poet is the conceit. Now, don't think of someone who's arrogant. In poetry, a conceit is a super clever, often surprising comparison between two things that seem to have absolutely nothing in common. It's an extended metaphor that forces you to see the world in a new way. Imagine comparing two lovers to the two legs of a drawing compass. Sounds weird, right? But that's exactly what John Donne did. And it's one of the most famous examples of a metaphysical conceit. Speaking of John Donne, he's the undisputed rock star of this movement. He was a man of contradictions, a passionate lover in his youth who became a revered church dean in his later years. And his poetry reflects this duality perfectly. His love poems are intense and analytical, exploring the spiritual connection between two people. In The Flea, he uses a tiny insect that has bitten both him and his lover to argue for their physical union. It's shocking, it's clever, and it's totally unforgettable. Then you have his religious works, the Holy Sonnets, where he wrestles with his faith, mortality, and the divine in a way that is raw and deeply personal. He argues with God. He questions. He pleads. It's a spiritual journey laid bare on the page. But Donne wasn't alone. Other brilliant poets like George Herbert, Andrew Marvell, and Henry Vaughan were also part of this intellectual club. George Herbert, for example, wrote beautiful religious poetry where the very shape of the poem on the page would reflect its meaning. These were called pattern poems. In his poem, Easter Wings, the lines are arranged to look like a pair of wings. It's visual art and literature combined. Andrew Marvell is another giant. His most famous poem, To His Coy Mistress, is a masterpiece of persuasion. He uses a logical, three-part argument to convince his beloved to seize the day, or carpe diem. He starts by imagining they have all the time in the world for a slow courtship. Then he hits her with the harsh reality of fleeting time and mortality. And finally he concludes that they should love passionately while they're still young. It's urgent, witty, and a little bit scandalous. What tied all these poets together was their use of colloquial language. They wrote how people actually spoke, combined with complex sentence structures and A paradox is a statement that seems to contradict itself, but contains a deeper truth. A classic example from Donne is death. Thou shalt die. How can death itself die? Well, for Donne, it's through the Christian belief in eternal life after death. See? It makes you stop and think. They tackled the big three: love, religion, and the meaning of life, but they did it in a way that was anything but conventional. Their love poetry wasn't just about beauty. It was about the union of souls. Their religious poetry wasn't just about praise. It was about the struggle of faith. Their philosophical musings weren't just abstract. They were grounded in the tangible, everyday world. The metaphysical poets fell out of favor for a while. Later critics found them too harsh, too intellectual, and not poetic enough. But in the 20th century, they had a major comeback, championed by poets like T.S. Eliot, who saw the genius in their fusion of thought and feeling. Today, we appreciate them for their boldness, their intellectual curiosity, and their unique ability to make us see connections where we thought none existed. They teach us that poetry isn't just about expressing emotion. It's about exploring it, dissecting it, and understanding it on a whole new level. It's poetry for the brain and the heart, working together. So next time you're looking for a literary challenge, dive into the world of the metaphysical poets. It's a workout for the mind you won't regret. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into literary history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. See you next time.